Hello, and welcome back to the Jessica Pinili podcast. In today's episode, we are going to talk about pivoting. This is a conversation that I keep happening over the past couple of weeks, so I thought I would bring it to the podcast. I think that at this point of the year, and for context, I am recording July 30th, so quite literally halfway through the year. But I think when we get to halfway through the year, we start to actually deeply reflect on how the start of our year has gone. And I know for me, over the past couple of years, not only do I do that, but I also then start to reflect on the year before and the year before that. And I just really start to understand where I was at this point of the year for each year, if that makes sense. And I think the conversation with not only business owners, but women in corporate around pivoting comes from the inner question, am I doing enough? Am I being enough? Am I creating enough? And I don't think that these questions are necessarily a bad thing. And it's not about the comparison trap. It's not about sabotaging in a sense, but we are going to go into that. I think it's more around realizing our potential, realizing what we can capitalize on, what we can leverage, what we have been doing. But I think if you can productively use your reflections when it comes to pivoting, and maybe you're listening to this in April or maybe you're listening to this in November, this can be applied no matter when you're listening to this. But when it comes to pivoting, what you are doing, I think it's very, very important to understand the first key thing, which is when you start to get that feeling, when you start to have these questions, am I doing enough? Am I being enough? It's not coming from this lack fear mentality. And this is the difference with the conversations that I've been having with clients, with friends, with people I've been networking with, is it's not coming from a fear state. It's genuinely looking at the long-term vision. And here and with everyone I work with, I focus on the long-term vision because that is the most important thing. I mean, it's great to have dopamine hits. It's great to have quick wins in the short term and to focus on the days and the weeks and the months, but I want you to think about your long-term vision. That's where these questions are coming from when it comes to pivoting. So this episode is really essential for you to understand if you are at a period in your life where you're like, okay, I want to pivot. It's actually time to change. I want to start by talking about understanding your values. I haven't spoken about this on the podcast in a hot minute. So I'm going to just give a very, very, very quick rundown. Understand that your values are always going to stack differently depending on the season of your life. And the season of your life is going to be dependent on those values. Now, the way that most people look at values, and I really changed my perspective the past couple of years, but the way that most people look at values is they say, well, I value family, I value friends, I value my job. I want you to look at it more micro. Look at number one, where you spend the most time and energy throughout the week. That is the quickest way, and be objective in this. That is the quickest way to actually understand what you value. Is that time and energy spent more so on Netflix and scrolling on TikTok and numbing out? Or is it spent on going over your finances and looking at the best investments? Or is it spent creating content for your business? Or is it spent with friends every single night or your partner? Where do you spend the most time and energy? That is where you're actually going to pull and understand your number one value. From there, yes, we can have many values, but with my clients, I tell them to look at their top three. So like I just said, the easiest way to get your top one value is your life will show you. Your behavior, your responses, your motives is going to show you. And sometimes what I find when I do this with my clients, and even when I tell my friends, is it's not always the answer we like. We may say, I really value money and working on my finances, but then you audit your life, and what you're seeing every single week is that every other night you're out dining out with your friends, or you're out, spending money, or every third day there's a new package coming. Do you value finances and investing, for an example? Or do you actually value time now socializing and building and nurturing relationships? Now, I want to preface this by saying, and I said this to a friend this morning, Values are always going to change, and they're dependent on you. There is absolutely no right or wrong answer, and I want you to remember that. I don't want you to shame yourself thinking, okay, I'm 30 and now I need to value my finances or take my business seriously or my career seriously, or now I'm 40 and my relationship has to be number one. No, there is no right or wrong answer, but I think why I am starting with this, talking about pivoting in life, it's pivotal to actually understand where your values stack, because then you can start to appropriately pivot according to the season, which is according to your values. So that's the very first thing that I want you to go away and do, is just to understand what you truly value, but get very, very micro with that, in not just say, okay, I'm spending all my time with my friends and my partner throughout the week. Like, I don't really care about my career, and I'm not spending time on my health at the moment. Every single night I'm with my friends, whatever. But get more micro. What is it that you value within that bigger header? So if that's like the umbrella under that, is it the connection from the relationships? Is it the socializing aspect? Is it the nurturing aspect? Let's do another example. Let's say you spend all your time health and fitness. What is it from there? Is it losing weight? Is it feeling better in your body? Is it fixing your hormones, etc.? This helps us break down what is really driving us. Now, stick with me, because this is going to feed into pivoting in life and having these discussions with ourselves, with our friends, with, anyone about, okay, am I doing the most out of life? So we want to look at that. Stack only 3, not to confuse yourself, but understand right now for this season of your life, not what you would like to be your number one value, but what is actually presenting itself as your number one value. When you get objective with how you are behaving and responding in life, you can actually start working through things. And when you are hitting a point in life, like you are now because you're listening to this or you're watching this on YouTube, you understand what to do when you are pivoting. And so first thing, understand your values. Don't skip that. I know that there can be people who may listen to this and you may think, oh, I already know like X, Y, Z. No, do it properly. Take a little bit of time. Obviously, I've just given you a short mini masterclass on how to actually understand and see what they are for yourself, but that's important. The second thing for this is now recognizing what season of life are you in. And I'm going to give you a personal example for this just so I can really help you understand how this gets toward us using discernment really of pivoting. Because I believe, as a side note, I believe that whenever we are pivoting in life, in business, in career, whatever sector of life, we need to use discernment, because there can be a very, very fine line between I need to pivot because I'm not making the most out of my life and making the most out of who I know I can become, versus you're uncomfortable with change. And we're going to speak about both of those. But the first thing is to understand what's the season that you are in your life. And now my personal example for you is this. The past year and a half, from the probably not from now, but from the start of this year, the past year and a half, so reverse from the start of this year, 2025, I was in a slower season. Was I building my business? And I'm talking about business for a second. Was I still building my business? Was I still creating in my business? Absolutely. But I was in a position where I could cruise, where I was able to slow down and really just take a step back. Like I could do the bare minimum. Now, again, discernment. Am I doing the bare minimum because I actually can, or am I retreating because I'm scared of the next level? And maybe this is a podcast episode for another day, because I could go on and on about this. But I really didn't understand this until I got into this year. I have been connecting with a lot of people that, have been in my network for a long time. And what they have been giving me as feedback is, Jess, I've really noticed a difference this year with how you're showing up and with what you're creating with your business. And I say to them, that was intentional. I was fortunate to be in a position where I could cruise for a bit, where I could have a slow season, what I would call a slow season in business, where it wasn't that I wasn't trying to achieve anything or hit milestones. Of course I am. I'm type A, high achieving for a reason, but it was more that I had done so much building up to 5 years, 4.5, 5 years in business that I had now gotten to the point where it was like, I was ready for a pivot. Now, does your slow season have to last a year and a half? No. Is there a timeline? No. I think, again, discernment, there's that word again. You need to understand, okay, is it time, or am I just taking the piss and I'm just being lazy, essentially? But as I came into this year, the reason there's been such of a difference is because I chose this to be a grind season. Now, I watched a YouTuber a few weeks ago. I cannot remember. I've been smashing watching YouTube the past couple of months. But one of the things that really stuck out for me, and I was like, this is exactly how I'm seeing my season right now, grind season, is grind seasons, and I'm just isolating business for a second. Grind seasons are really those seasons where it is not sustainable. It's something where you push and expand your capacity. I'm not saying you burn out, because if you just get into the cycles of a grind season where every month you'll burn out and you're burning everything to the ground and you can't make sense of anything or everything feels hard, like that's not a grind season. A grind season is very methodical. It's very tactical. You see it through a strategic lens and you're setting it up correctly with a long-term goal. You can absolutely apply this to any area of life. Now, how would we apply this to an area like relationship? Well, when I was in a slower season and kind of taking a step back and just going inward and understanding myself when it came to business, it was in quotation marks, grind season for my relationships. And this, I know it sounds weird to use that term, but for me, my value was put on relationships first. Relationships first, business was second. And because relationships was first, a lot of time was spent understanding, as I'm now into my 30s, I turned 32 this year, understanding who I want in my life, also developing my romantic relationship, being able to have harder conversations, being able to understand my boundaries now as a 30-something-year-old. And so that was a grind season for me per se in a different sector of life, because I was like, okay, what am I putting time and energy and effort, or what do I really want to? It's my relationships. Now, it's reverse. Business for me this year is a top value, right? And that goes, there's micro things in there, micro values from that. But I'm giving you this context before we kind of link this back to pivoting. And so understanding what season you are in, you can have different names of these, like slow or grind doesn't relate to you. That's absolutely fine. They're just the easiest for me. And I think it helps me also understand for the different values, my top 3 values, what are the seasons and how am I putting the time, energy, and effort? I don't believe in balance. You cannot balance everything equally. So if you are trying to do that, or you have the mindset, you will fall flat every single time. You will not be able to balance doing all top values, all your, let's say your top 3 values, and giving them equal time and energy, because you will never give anything 100%. And so why this conversation is also fresh in mind is I was having a conversation with a really good friend of mine, and she has noticed her values have shifted to developing her relationship to now it's business that's on front. And that can be a really hard conversation with your partner. Again, another conversation for another time. So now we bring these 2 things together, understanding not only our values, but also understanding the season that we are in, coming back to the pivoting part. When you are having these feelings, when you are having these thoughts where you're feeling inside, okay, am I meant to be doing more? Am I ready for more? That's normally an indication that yes, the answer is yes, to keep it really simple. And something I've written down in my notes is your discomfort isn't the problem. Use it more as a portal. So you are going to feel so uncomfortable when you get to a position in life where you're thinking, okay, I need to pivot, I need to do something different. And I want you to use that discomfort and understand that's quite literally the capacity of your nervous system. I've said this analogy a million times in the podcast, and I'll keep saying it because it's important and it really helps me understand. But if you have a balloon, when you blow it up, it gets to a point where you get scared, right? Because it might pop in your face. So you stop blowing it up, tie it, and away you go. That's your nervous system. Every time you hit that discomfort, that's the expansion. And so you either choose to lean into that and to choose your season and to understand what your values are and why these conversations in your mind of, okay, am I meant to be doing more? What should I be doing? Like, I feel like I should be doing more. To use that, lean into that discomfort and expand that nervous system until the next lot of expansion, right? Because where you are now is a much bigger and different capacity compared to where you were 5 years ago, right? And the things you are experiencing. And so when things start to feel emotionally off, this is how I recognize that it's not actually sabotage, it's information. Going back to what I said and why I highlighted this, the discernment, because it can be really tricky sometimes, the blurred lines of actually understanding, am I just sabotaging because I'm gaining momentum, or is this time to actually pivot? And I think when you are really leaning into understanding yourself and emotionally you are feeling off, energetically, definitely, if you are feeling off, use that as information. Because I'm sure that you have been in a point in life where you've experienced that all of a sudden, something that felt so safe, something that felt so normalized in your life, all of a sudden feels off. And it doesn't mean that it's anyone's fault. It doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. In fact, I take everything like that as feedback. It's giving me information for where I am. But where 98% of people go is they feel that discomfort and they lean straight out of it. And they don't pivot, they don't make decisions quickly, they don't do anything remotely close to being able to change, and then they repeat the same cycles over and over and over again. Growth, personal development, understanding yourself is a full-time job. It is. You can't expect to consume, self-development and growth resources once a week and think that you are growing. You actually have to go in and understand yourself and understand what is happening. Know the difference between, and this is the work I do with all of my clients. And in fact, I highly recommend, if you're loving this podcast episode, go sign up to my free 5-day training series, Path to the Next Edge. The link will be in the description box below, but it's where I teach you in 5 trainings. Simple, you don't even have to watch them, they're videos, but you can just listen to them on your hot girl walk, where I teach you how to go from your current level to your next edge. So that would actually be the perfect resource to go and consume. And I give you, like I do on the podcast, I give you things to implement and to integrate. But I think it's about understanding and trusting. Why I brought that up is that really builds the self-trust and understanding of what's happening internally. Because if you don't understand what's happening internally, if you can't understand and discern the difference between what is sabotaging behavior and what is an indication that I need to make decisions now and I need to pivot, then you're going to continuously be left behind. And like I said, this is why the masses stay left behind and the masses continue to repeat the same cycles, continue to do the same things and get the same results. If you've noticed that you are now at this point of the year and you're thinking to yourself, okay, I know I can do so much more. And I know for a fact, if you are listening to this or if you are watching this, I know that you are watching this because of divine timing. You are meant to listen or watch this and know that you are meant for so much more. And I think that when we have that feeling inside of us, it's not ego, it's not vanity. I think it's such a big call to push you to understand that and to capitalize on that. I grew up with this feeling. I have said this before, but when I was 10, I remember saying to my parents, like, I'm going to be my own boss. I'm going to be my own boss at 10 years old. Right? And I've felt for the longest time that I am meant for so much more. And there was a period in my life where I could really, really recognize that, but I did nothing about it. I did exactly what I told you the masses do. I recognized the times that I could pivot and where I could make decisions fast, where I could move and do something different, even though it's uncomfortable, because change is uncomfortable, because we're wired for safety, not success. Remember that. Our body is just protecting us. There were many, many times. So I've experienced this. But if you're having that thoughts, you are meant, like if you can feel it on a cellular level, you are meant for more. But you need to make the decisions and know that there is there is such thing as failure, but we use failure as feedback. Even if you make a decision really, really fast and then all of a sudden it fails and it's not what you envisioned at all, that's fine. You take that and you use that feedback into what you really want to do. And so, something else I put here in my notes is, and I truly believe this because I've witnessed it time and time and time again over the years, but the universe will always send you signs. Maybe this is more of a spiritual woo-woo talk, but I truly believe that there will be signs, there will be things that happen. Not only signs like confirmation, like, yeah, you should go and apply for that job, or yeah, you should book that trip. But I also think there are going to be roadblocks. There are going to be detours. I also think there are going to be things that happen where you think, why am I experiencing this? Why did I possibly attract that? But I reframe it and I think, okay, why did I attract that? What is actually happening? Why do I need to focus? Like, what was happening in my mind, or what's been the big point of thought this week? And now I'm experiencing this. What am I doing? The issue is most people that have ambition, they struggle to switch on the decision-making side of themselves to make decisions fast. And this is what I'm asking of you. If you are seeing the signs, whatever those signs are, angel numbers, synchronicities, maybe something has happened like a car crash. Car crashes are very spiritual. Not that I'm putting that energy out there, of course, and I've been in a car crash before. But what I'm saying is that it can be seen on the 3D, like someone in the mass is like the worst thing ever. And yeah, it can be, especially if you ride off your car and, you get injured. But it's also such a spiritual sign of like, stop, redirect yourself. You're going the wrong way. So when I say like, if bad things in quotation marks happen to you, just like after you initially get over it, because you're still a human being, you're still having a human experience. I was recently in Perth dog sitting and house sitting for my sister. And something happened within the first 2 days of me being there. And I was like, oh, really, universe? And then, I neutralized it pretty quickly. And I'm getting really good at big life events that I perceive as negative or bad. I have been practicing over the past few years, because I speak a lot about being able to neutralize, of minimizing the time between my reaction and neutralizing. And so I think within under an hour, this quite big event, I neutralized myself and I was like, all right, what is this actually signaling to me? What's this sign that I'm getting? Why did I attract this? What's my frequency right now? And I know there might be people listening or watching this and don't believe in all the woo-woo stuff, but I guess like I wanted to share that because I do, and I believe like it's a part of us. We live in this universe that is constantly sending us signs, and this is why we get the downloads to pivot. This is why we get those feelings. I get this intuitive feeling of things where I know, and I want you to tap into, what do you know you need to pivot? What do you need to change? The whole time that I've been speaking, what has been on your mind? Is it your business, the way you're functioning? Is it your career? Is it your money, where you live, like location? What is it that has come to mind immediately? That's probably a sign of, okay, what decisions are you making and what are you pivoting? And, I think that when we course correct, it's not collapsing at all. It's exactly that. It's course correcting. If you think of all the pathways we have access to on the quantum field and in the 3D reality, it just takes a decision to grow a new pathway and to go a different way. Whereas most people, they will see the decision point and they will continue on the same path. And even though I'm kind of moving my arms for everyone listening, but on YouTube I can see, if the thing they want is over on the left, but they keep making decisions that go towards the right and they keep repeating the same cycles, what are they got? Are they going to get to the thing on the left? No. They're going to continuously get the results on the right. And so this is why when you have this feeling, when you're coming up with, can I do more? Can I be more? Not from a self-depreciating perspective, but from like, okay, I'm ready. And that's where I was at the start of the year. I'm like, I'm ready now. I'm ready now to go inward and understand more about the next level of my business and what I'm going to create, what I'm going to achieve. And as always, it's a long-term vision. All right, how am I doing that? So it's grind season in this business. And like I said, grind seasons are created to not be sustainable. And it's not doing it in a way that, okay, I always have to get in this grind season. It's just understanding your capacity. But that could be a whole other podcast episode. So I digress, but what I was saying is when you're course correcting, it's not collapsing. It's actually correcting where you are intuitively feeling you should go. And again, if you're trying to get over to the left, if the decision, I'm just trying to be visual here, is on the left side and you keep making decisions to the right and then you finally make someone to the left and it fails, it's fine. That doesn't work out. Take the other side. Pivoting is something that is crucial. It is crucial in high achievers, in ambitious people, because when we don't pivot, when we aren't, what's the correct word I'm looking for? When we aren't willing to shift and change, don't expect different results. Don't expect different outcomes. In fact, expect the exact same outcome. Expect experiencing the same reality. But you have to pull yourself up. You have to understand why, number one, why am I feeling this? Why has this come up? What is feeling off emotionally and energetically? Because that itself is information. And number two, understanding what am I choosing every single day to course correct, essentially. It's not what am I going to choose this week or what will I do eventually. And this is what separates people from the masses versus people who are experiencing life like they desire. Because I think every single day, what am I choosing differently if I know right now that I'm in a pivot season? Just looking at my notes to see if there's anything that I have missed, because I think this is such a important conversation. It's not about burning everything down. And I really used to think about that when you pivot, right? It's like, okay, I'm going to pivot and everything else is just going to be thrown in the bin and everything else is going to burn down. It's not that. It's taking what you've already learned and capitalize on that, leverage that. How can you do it better? How can you make it better? Yes, of course, there's going to be things that come up where it's like, okay, that needs to be completely removed from my life, but that's great. That's still a pivot, but it doesn't mean that you need to burn everything straight to the ground. A pivot just means redirection, quite literally. And when you feel and you have that inclination to redirect your life, lean into it. See where it takes you. I have far too many conversations when I'm in social settings with people who I just meet and they tell me, they are doing one thing and they really want to do the other and they can't get themselves out of the cycle or loop. And you know what I say to them? You got to pivot and make a decision fast. And that's simple. And this is coming from someone who I quit my job and I moved country and I started a business. Do you always need to be that dramatic? Probably not. Sometimes the biggest outcomes come from the smallest pivots and decisions. But that came because I just knew everything was emotionally off. And like I said, emotionally off doesn't mean sabotage. It means information. And what I'll put here is the discernment part, just linking back to understanding, am I sabotaging or do I actually really need to pivot? The question to ask yourself is, what you are about to change or do, is it actually creating results, going to create results? Because maybe you don't know. Maybe it's something brand new. Is it needle moving? Is it profit moving? That's the question to ask yourself. Or if what you're going to do, if it's not going to create any of that, or it's not going to move towards your desires and towards your outcome, it's probably sabotage. It's probably you keeping yourself small. And understand that. Really understand that fear. I think, when people recognize, and I've noticed this a lot in my industry, when people recognize that they are sabotaging, it's almost like, yeah, I know I'm sabotaging by just watching Netflix every night. Like I really want to go and create content, or, I really want to save money, but I can't stop going out every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday for dinner. Like that's you recognizing the sabotage, but understand why you're doing that. And essentially the answer is you're protecting yourself. So the next question from that is, why am I protecting myself? What am I protecting myself from? And, this is the work that I do with my clients because it's important work. It's one thing to understand that you're sabotaging, but like truly understand it is another. Truly understand why you're protecting yourself, where you learned that, where you picked it up, how that actually shows up, and where's the fine line between you making progress and you being someone different versus you falling back into the sabotaging, and sometimes you don't even recognize. And then all of a sudden you've created the same results, the same outcome, or your month looks the same as the one before. The past 90 days look the same before. If your last 90 days are the exact same as the 90 days you're about to experience, something needs to change. Something needs to evolve. Right? In business, in life, in career, in health, something needs to shift, especially, and I'm obviously, if you're watching or listening to this, I'm talking to you, but if you really are like, I want to progress and I want to make the most out of my life and I want to create X, Y, Z, but your last 90 days look like the last before that, and then your next 90 days are going to look like the last 90 days, something's off. That's where you need to understand the sabotaging. This is why I teach both subconscious mastery and strategy, because you can have the best strategy, the best plan, the best Notion board, the Google Docs, you can have it all. But if you are doing that and executing that with a subconscious identity that isn't wired, like you haven't wired for those results, that doesn't feel safe, that is protecting itself from being more successful because you have a fear of judgment, because, for example, you know, when you were 15, you did a public talk at school and everyone made fun of you and you've internalized that, you will continue that loop. You know, something that comes to mind is, you know, when you reverse engineer this is understanding, and I went through a bit of a fear process a couple of episodes ago, so definitely go listen to that episode. But, you know, one of my clients is, there was a particular emotional charge around her not, in quotation marks, being able to save money past a certain number. And we kind of did this process, and we went and I said, you know, what are you protecting yourself from? Where is this coming from? And we realized it came from her first job, and just the way that her savings were set up with her mom, and she had internalized that. And when we got to that, she was like, I didn't even realize. And that's where most people are. They don't realize. And so kind of bringing all of that back together. Like I said, if you haven't listened to a couple of episodes, let me get up the exact number. Yeah, episode 328. Go listen to that. I do a full rundown of what I just spoke about, but being able to have discernment between, do I need to pivot or am I sabotaging, comes to understanding yourself. And in fact, one of the things that I have been building and getting ready to launch to the public this year is Woman Mastery HQ. So this is a hybrid membership. This is where we not only work on strategy to increase your income, but also your subconscious mastery. Because like I said, you can have the best plan in the world, but if you don't have subconscious identity to back that up, and this is applicable to business owners, to corporate women, if you don't have that subconscious, like locked in and understanding at every single level what's happening, you're always going to fall short. This is why I put both of the work together. Most coaches like myself look at someone and they go, it's either one or the other. It's not. In all the years I've had this business and beyond this, it's definitely not. You need both, and you need to understand yourself so well that you just know when you are hitting those points that are sabotaging your progress and when you need to make a decision and pivot. And so that is launching very soon. Join the waitlist. It's in the description link below. And there's a bunch of bonuses you get with joining the waitlist when you come into the membership. But this is truly my life's work. I'm so excited for it. I cannot wait to support. And it's a hybrid membership because gone are the days. No one wants a membership where you just log in and you watch trainings, right? That's boring. This is hybrid because it's live masterminding, live trainings, live coaching calls with Q&A. You get one-on-one access to me. So I think it's about understanding how you can learn more about yourself with the support. And that's what I wanted to create, because I'm like, I wish I had this. 10 years ago, I wish I had something like this where I could get support on all fronts, but support that I can actually implement and integrate. So if that sounds up your alley, head to the description below, join the waitlist. We are launching very, very soon, and I'm so excited. But I hope you have enjoyed. I'm looking at my notes to make sure I haven't missed anything. I hope you have enjoyed today's episode. I hope it's given you some ideas, some understandings about how you're operating, about what to work on. Like I said, the first tangible thing is definitely looking at your values, understanding the seasons of life you're in. They may seem like minor things, but they're absolutely not. And let me know how you go. Let me know if you love this episode, either in the comments below on YouTube, or if you're listening to this, send me a DM. Every time I get a DM from one of you who have listened, it just lights me up so much. You have no idea how much I appreciate you and I appreciate the support. And if you haven't already, I would love, love, love for you to leave a review, because it really helps me understand what you love and to keep creating episodes like these. But I appreciate every single one of you. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Jessica Pinili podcast, and I will speak to you in the next episode. Bye.